Hi, welcome to a special edition on the M Model Railroading Live channel. This Saturday, September 11th, 2021. We're having a special show today as we will be interviewing the president of the National Model Railroaders Association, Gordy Robinson. And we'll be coming to him momentarily. But there's a few things I need to do homework wise before we can get into the interview. And that is that the NMRA along with JC Riptrack in the Down and Dirty Weathering contest, he says, you guys, I've been told, and I should direct you to, you can vote at midwestmodel.com/down and dirty / you can go vote once a day and vote again 24 hours later. So the Down and Dirty Weathering contest is now coming to an end from JC's Riptrack, and you can go vote at midwestmodels.com down and dirty /down and dirty website. Then you can see all the pictures and photos of the entries that they have before, and then what else? And we got shows coming back in September, later this September, the 18th, the Johnny's Train Talk Show, I believe. Hold on, I got this right here. You know how good we are with. I got it on my trusty notepad. Thursday. September 18th is going to be the Railroad Empire Show, how we build them. That's going to come back. And Thursday, September 23rd, we will be having Johnny's Train Talk Show. So we'll get more into that later on. But without further ado, let me bring in our guest, Gordy Robinson. Gordy, thank you so much for joining us on this special broadcast. I'm so glad that you were able to take time out of your busy schedule, and because I know we've been going back and forth on emails and trying to figure out a good time to do this.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Thank you so very, very much. So let me ask you a question that maybe when you do interviews like this don't normally get asked. Do you yourself have a layout?
Oh, I have a few. Yeah, I have a few layouts. I've got some Fremo modules, and I've got a partially constructed end scale layout, and I've got a few layouts that are currently in pieces that are sectional and stored in my garage. So yeah, I've got quite a few layouts in O scale, N scale, and HO.
And where do you keep them?
So I have a dedicated railway room in the house. I designed and then we had built this house a few years ago. And I got a 21-foot by 13-foot railway room on the ground floor of the house. And COVID gave us the opportunity to no longer need a guest suite, so we emptied that, and we've got some Fremo modules set up there at the moment. So pretty good.
So you took advantage of the pandemic.
that was the missus' idea. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So how long have you been into model railroading? When is the emphasis or the genesis of your beginnings?
I think I was born into it.
Really?
Yeah. So my father was he actually had a model railroad manufacturing business, and so from birth, basically, I was at train shows and surrounded by model railroaders. And it's weird when you're a kid and you're in that space. I suppose it's probably the same for like Shane Wilson's son at scaletrains.com when he was a little bit younger, and you're thrust into this space where everyone wants to talk to your dad and everybody knows your dad. And like, no way, you can't go anywhere or do anything at a train show without your dad finding out. It's a bit, painful at times, but it was really good. So yeah, I had and it was, the kits that we did were etched brass locomotives and passenger cars, as you guys would call them, but all of British prototypes. And so I learned from an early age what all the different components of a steam locomotive were. I was packing kits when I was in my early teens, pre-teens really, packing kits. I was doing all the nuts and bolts and things like that. So yeah, I was born into it and learned how to handle and pick up models basically. When I was 6 years old, I used to operate one of the largest O-scale two-rail layouts in the UK. And by the time I was 10, I was running my own. It was a garden railroad, and it ran between buildings. So the distance between places was simulated by running around the garden. And I was running my own signal box. It had a 100-lever interlocking, and I was running all that at 10 years old with the British Bell signals and everything. So I'd say I was kind of parachuted into it,
Yeah, yeah. You were thrown into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
6. That's cool. Did you ever? Were there ever a time in your teenage years that you drifted away from the hobby? And
No, the only time I drifted away from the hobby, but it was simply because I was in the military. Was when I was away at sea, and that was simply because model trains and boats don't mix.
yeah,
But I say that's bad, but I have a friend who used to scratch the locomotives in foxholes in Afghanistan. So suppose he can't really,
no,
I was putting some poor effort in there. But when I came home on leave, me and my father would work on the layout. I'll work on some aspect of something. So I've
right.
always been involved. I suppose it just was a passing interest. It wasn't my, I did go through the drinking stage, and stuff like that. It was much more interesting to go drinking on a Friday night than go work in the layout. But yeah, when I was about early 20s, and I left the military, and I kind of took things back up and started working on bits and pieces. So yeah,
Right.
it's always been there. I've never drifted away, and I think there's a myth about this drifting away kind of thing, because with the internet, people that are the younger model railroaders now, and there's a lot of younger model railroaders, don't have to feel disconnected from the hobby because the YouTube algorithm's always putting them back onto it. So,
Yeah,
you know,
true, very true. We have Marty's train shed. He says, "Good day, all from the cold and dark Queensland this morning." Welcome, Marty. Welcome
that's
to the
fake
show.
news. It's never cold in
It's
Queensland.
it's never cold in Queensland. Okay. Just as we're getting people to come in, Grandpa Rouse is here, Indian Head Valley Railroad, and Philip Weinman is here. Eric Hall from the MRRO.com is in here, and Marty's train and subs. Ken Pryor is here as well. Thank you all for joining us. Everybody's here, and they're all saying hello. I'm waiting for Marty Jenkins to come in because he said he was going to get up at 5 a.m. to
Well,
join us.
that is Marty. Marty's train shed is Marty Jenkins. So
That is, Marty, I never realized that. You come on every night. Forgive me, Marty. I owe you lunch. I'll send a pack of hot dogs down to you. Because he comes in on a weekly get together at night, and it's lunchtime where he is in Australia and stuff, and he's always having hot dogs. So anyway,
there's not much. We see there's not much else to do down there in the colony. So.
Normally it's lunch, Marty, but what's for breakfast? Yes, Brad Anderson asked that of Model Railroad Down Under. Yeah, stuff. So how is it that you became why is it that you became the president of the National Model Railroads Association? What was the driving force to say, hey, I want to do this? Because it can be, for all intents and purposes, I mean, it's a good job, but it can be daunting and sometimes thankless. So
it can. I think so. I've been involved in national since 2017. Before that, I was just helping with the British region, and I was doing all the social media. So I've been on the front line of receiving and seeing the flack, and the reaction to NMRAX was great. It's something that I've had in the works since 2018. I saw the need to do it, and for me, I was seeing that no, and I don't want this to come across negative, because there's a lot of people at National working really hard all the time, putting in hours that we couldn't afford to pay for. Okay, but I just saw that there wasn't necessarily the speed of action and the drive there to react, to see the scale of the problem that COVID was going to present an organization that's based on social interaction, and so we did NMRX. It was really successful, and then people started saying, hey, you know what, you should think about heading up this organization and putting some drive in, and that really accelerated when the first round of nominations went out for president, and nobody put their name forward from North America. Everyone started saying, you really should think about it. And it's not an easy thing to do from the UK, because the rules of the NMRA as they still stand today, although we're working to change it, is that people in the British region, the Australian region, and the British region, the European region, can only become the president or vice president of the NMRA through petition. And that they can't be nominated by the nominating committee. It has to go through petition. So that requires you to get 60 people, of which 30 only 30 can be from within your own region. And that's a challenge at the best of times when you've got a pond in between you. But, in the middle of a global pandemic, and I thought, well, okay, I'll put my name in the hat and make people aware. And like, it was way over 60. We weren't worrying about it. So there's a lot of support. I think a lot of people voted for me, and it's like, don't scare me. You don't have to be retired to do this job. You don't have to be some kind of chief executive of a Fortune 500 company or anything like that. I've been a senior manager in healthcare, worked on the front lines. I've been in the military, and I've got leadership is there or it's not there.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what age you are. There are some people that I've met in this role and in our organization that are in their teens that have some better leadership skills than people a lot more their senior, that could be their grandparents. And so it was that really, and it's a fantastic opportunity for our organization to be headed up by a younger person. And you see there's also some younger people cropping up now onto the board of directors. We've got Chris Palermo, John Doring, and Martin Jenkins as well now on the board of directors. And these are all people who have full-time jobs as well.
Yes.
So it's myth busting. Things have significantly changed in the NMRA to enable us to have a president who lives on a 3.5 square mile island in Orkney in the middle of the North Atlantic, or certainly the eastern portion of the North Atlantic, and that's down to the changes that previous administrations were quietly putting in place in the NMRA. The introductions of online meetings, and monthly meetings and committee meetings going online. We have the VTC worldwide working group that's online, and this is all stuff we were doing actually pre-pandemic. But
Right.
That's all kind of reached this perfect point where we are today.
And in doing that, how many, since you've taken over as and become the president, how many of the department heads have you changed, or has you replaced or put in position?
Well, to be perfectly honest, most, and that's because some of it's not poor performance or anything like that. It's because people wanted to step down and retire. So one thing I did back in May or June was I wrote to all the department heads, and I said, look, this is the situation. I'll become the president. I'm happy for you all to continue, but if you don't feel that you wish to continue for whatever reason, don't feel that we won't be able to replace you, because we will. If the time is right for you to move back to working on your layout, go and work on your layout. And so we've got a new, pretty much the only person that stayed the same is the head of fundraising, and head of administration, which is an employed position. So there's a new head of IT, which is Gert Speed Muller from Texas.
Speed, yes, know him well.
Speed, yeah. There's a new head of publications, Riley Tiggs.
Mm-hmm.
There is a new head of education, which is Dr. Michael Hone, MMR, who was Deputy Education Department Manager. Then there is a new head of nominations committee, which is Pat McCarthy. And where else? There's so many different department heads that we've changed, and I've probably forgotten a few there, but we've made some big changes there. And that's and also, and the board of directors, I had to appoint a new at-large worldwide director to replace myself, having me been appointed to that board position in November last year. And so I asked Marty from Australia to come on board into that role, because I think it's really important that we have a global representation for the global organization. And so we now have this nice balance of members from all over the world driving into the organization, which is great, because we're getting we're using and bringing in some of the best people that we can. And it's great. So we've got directors in Canada, Australia, two in Australia, one in Canada, one in the United Kingdom, and then all the other directors are actually in the US, which puts us just under 50% because there's 9 directors, so there's 4 overseas now.
Yeah,
And,
Marty's Train says the NMRA now has a board of directors that is over 50% based outside the USA.
Not quite, nearly. It's over 40%.
Nearly.
But yeah, so yeah, there's been a lot of changes, and my hope is that people start to see maybe a change in the culture that they see from national, because in the past we know it's been a little bit sometimes abrasive. I think that's a safe thing to say.
Yeah.
Some of the ways that certain policies were implemented and stuff have been not the way I would have liked to have seen it done.
Right.
Certainly, there's been feet dragging on a few key issues, digital publications being one of them, and I'm sure we'll come on to talk about that. But digital publication, the NMRA Magazine, is now something that's a very much more accelerated position than it was, and I've helped drive that as a director, and now again as the president. We're hoping to have proposals out to the board of directors for the winter board meeting, and we're also hoping to survey the membership. Membership will have noticed that there's been 2 surveys recently that I've had undertaken by the organisation to its membership, because I think it's really important that we listen to people. So yeah, you should be starting to see the changes. I've only been here now for just over 2 months. It was only July the 2nd that I became the president. So it's still early days. This still frustrates me that there's things that I just haven't physically got the time to get to yet. I'm working down a very big list of problems, as there is in any organization, but we're getting there.
I have really 2 good questions. One is from Jason Volk. He says, how are you going to add more online focus interests for the youth and adults?
So I don't want to say too much on that, but there will be more online education coming from the organisation. Just watch this space. That's just one of those things on my to-do list we haven't quite got to. But yeah, definitely. I think we're not going to take away anything from the organisation that people like today. So whatever I say now, if you like going to your local division meet, that's never going to change. It's always going to be there as long as there's somebody willing to step up and volunteer to coordinate that in your area. But there are a significant number of people in the world now who that more traditional model doesn't fit for. Yes, some of them are younger, but not necessarily. There are people who are in retirement homes or whatever and can no longer get out to attend those meetings. And so I'm very concerned that we as an organization reach out to them wherever they are in the world. And so NMRAX was a great way of doing that. It's kept people very well connected. We've had a lot of people renew and rejoin the NMRA because they feel reconnected through that. But as an organization, we're a 501c3 educational organization. So it wouldn't be a surprise to Jason, I'm sure, that my plan is to expand what we do online from an education perspective, and we should be looking to run some trials of what we're thinking of doing there in the new year. So it should be in the spring, hopefully, if we can solve some of the more pressing issues. So
Eric Hall asks, will you be changing the name from national to global, GMRA?
Well, so there's a few problems with changing the name from national to anything else, whether that be international or whatever, or just simply Model Railroad Association. The problem is we've got trademarks, we've got logos, we've got so many
True,
things that would
true,
need to
very true.
change. So, and also there's, I don't know what the membership's wider view is on that. So it may be something that we go to membership and ask and see what they would like us to do. Certainly, that whilst the impression of the organisation with a president that's based in Scotland may be that it's very international, actually the membership is predominantly in North America. So you're looking at 85% of our membership being in North America.
Right.
So um,
Well,
you know,
I did a little research on the National Model Railroads, and it was founded in 1935.
correct.
And it was basically founded by, I think, about four groups, four model railroading clubs that were going back and forth, and they couldn't get, their trains were derailing, and the standards had to be set. So on the Labor Day weekend, they got the thing. But then later on, they incorporated Canada, and at that time, it became a question of whether we should change it to an international or kept, and they decided to keep it as the National Model Railroad Association, because even though it was at that time international for Canada, they kept it because it was easier to do at that time. Do you see any updates on the standards that have been set?
We're always updating those standards. And if you look at the minutes from the summer board meeting that took place in July, we updated a whole raft of DCC standards, a whole raft of LCC standards. I don't see us changing the track gauge.
Okay,
Those
that's
kind of
good.
things are particularly unpopular standards changes.
Yeah,
But certainly as new scales and new gauges come out, the NMRA needs to stay abreast of that, because that is an area of risk. T gauge is expanding; it's a growing scale, and there's a risk, of it's ultimately it's one. I think it's 1/440th or something like that, 1/400th for something scale, and someone's going to shoot me for getting that wrong, and the NMRA is going to be told it's only a HO organization for me saying that. But T gauge is a classic example. The tolerances, the smaller you get, the tighter the tolerances are, and ultimately they're as a new manufacturers come on board, they're going to want to make sure their stuff's compatible. The NMRA has set that standard now. No one in their right mind is going to want to produce a model railroading equipment that isn't compatible with somebody else's anymore, because they just know that the scale of the market won't handle it. And that's why you're seeing even the T gauge guys start to diversify with different manufacturers coming in, and then they ask for standards, and so, some standards changes are actually asked for by manufacturers or by the manufacturer's subcontractors. So a lot of the DCC standard changes that you've seen at the moment have been asked for by the Chinese. And it's the, I don't know if people might not even have noticed this, but we went away from the color coding standards for DCC wiring. It was removed because that then enabled Joe Blogs in a train manufacturing company to go off down to the market, buy whatever wire they wanted and slap it on our trains, right? But then, no surprise, people realized actually that lack of standards made that really difficult to train people how to
right.
put these things together, because
Yes,
color coding
yes,
helps with training
exactly.
and quality control.
Yes,
And so it's actually the Chinese that have asked us, that were the first people to ask for us to put that back in. And as they're the biggest manufacturers of trains in the world, because of course it's not just North American prototype, they're manufacturing everything.
yes.
Um, there's that driver for you, and so all the manufacturers in the world, it wasn't too difficult to get them to agree to put that back in. So those standards are constantly under review, constantly being checked, and constantly being looked at.
Yeah. Michael Conley asks, he says, now that you're the NMRA president, is there anything that has surprised you or that you didn't anticipate at the time?
Quite a lot. But quite a lot. I think when you become the leader of any organization, Certainly, some personalities behind the scenes surprise you, and then you have to get rid of them. But yeah, I think one of the things I didn't anticipate, if you'd asked me in March what did I think was going to be my biggest problem when I became the NMRA president, I have to tell you that finding convention cities for 2024 and 2025 wasn't top of my list, especially considering 2025 is 90 years of the NMRA.
Right.
But that has consumed way too much of my life as a president over the last 2 months, of conventions and striving to get conventions and the organization of conventions underway. I knew we were going to have to do some COVID recovery, and I thought we'd be focusing on member development and retention and stuff like that because we come out of COVID. But no, the biggest surprise has been that conventions has been the biggest pain point, and the lack of people wanting to do conventions. Now I think by putting a little bit of a focus on that, actually we might have enough bids come in to take us right through to 27, which would be lovely. That would be great. Give people some confidence back,
Yeah.
and some great cities coming forward now. But we had absolutely, on July 2nd, when I took over, there was no plan and there was no conventions beyond Texas in 23. And that is not a place we want to be. So that's been the biggest challenge. I know that wasn't quite the question, but that's been the biggest thing I didn't
I
anticipate.
understand that. And why would Texas not be the place, the spans wise, or?
No, Texas is the last one that we had an offer from. So Texas, in 2023 we'll be in Dallas Fort Worth. In 22 we'll be in St. Louis, which was the convention that I have jokingly referred to as the 7 years in the planning convention. So it should be really good. But of course that team has had to change venues and change everything. So it's a bit unfair to say they've had 7 years to plan it because they've just suddenly had to completely change the venue.
Right.
The venue wasn't available, the original venue. So
right.
So yeah, we'll be in St. Louis next year, and then we'll be in Texas in 23. We don't have a bid for 24. In 25, we'll be somewhere I can't tell you yet, but we have a bid. 26 will be somewhere else. We have a bid. 27, we've got some other bids coming in. So yeah, it's looking pretty rosy now. I don't have to focus too much on that problem. I can now start looking at some better, newer things that people would rather me focus on, no doubt.
Sure. Indian Head Valley Railroad asks, the question is, what is the number one reason to convince me to join the NMRA? I am on a fixed income, so for me to join is a big deal. So it has to be good. The nearest chapter is an hour's drive from me.
Yeah, so it's a difficult question. So it's a particular question I don't like, not because I can't answer it, but because there's so many different ways I can answer it. And it ultimately, the NMRA offers so many benefits that I would recommend you go to our website, look at some of those benefits, and see what it is that works for you. We know that. So there's some of our members that never go to a division meet. So your nearest division being an hour's drive from you is like neither here nor there really, because my nearest division is the whole of Scotland. It's everywhere. We don't meet. We meet virtually because it's too big of an area for us to actually physically meet together. We'd be looking at a 4-hour drive each way to have a meeting. But it's difficult. I would say the best thing to do is go and take out a Rail Pass membership and try it. We do that for $19.95 for 9 months. Give it a try and see if it's for you. And with that Rail Pass membership, you'll be able to get on to our partnership program with over 50 partners of model railroad manufacturers. You'll be able to get discounts. And I think the Micromart discount's 15%. So in one order from Micromart, you can get that $20 back in your pocket. So, if you're on a fixed income and you're building a layout, then there's nothing better than fixed discounts. And that's what the NMRA partnership program offers you. So that's just one benefit. But you are joining the biggest model railroad community in the world. And people quite rightly argue that you've got YouTube and you can get all this information from YouTube and you can get this stuff from Facebook and you've got online forums. And yeah, in the modern world, there is so many different ways of accessing information. No one's reason. Tom's I just seen Tom's comment there. Everyone's on a fixed income. Yeah, they are. Unless you're a sales guy, then you're on, maybe a bonus
commission.
income, but commission. Yeah, but But the thing with the NMRA is you're going to be able to make friends all over the world, and it's then having friends that will give you their time, and I can't sell you friendship.
No, that's
But
just
what I can
true.
sell you is I can sell you a rail pass and say, go and give it a go. Go to your local chapter. I know it's an hour away. Go to your local chapter, see what's going on. Maybe be frugal and cherry pick an event that your local chapter's doing that you want to get to. Seek out and see whether there's a division, maybe not your nearest one, but a division in your area that does online virtual meetings, and then you can go and attend remotely and see what's going on. And so each person's got their own reason. If you ask 10 NMRA members why they remember the NMRA, they'll all give you different reasons, but generally they'll all say friendship. And so as Andy says there, it's a challenge. It's something I can't sell you. I can't sell mateship, but it will be an intangible benefit that you'll get from it. So
Yeah,
give it
sure,
a go.
sure. That seems to be the biggest question, and that we here have. We did a show a couple of years ago on the NMRA, which I think I told you earlier. We invited somebody from the NMRA to come and join us on this to give us a counterpoint, and they didn't. But the biggest thing was, like, a lot of people don't want to pay the $75 for a magazine, and it seems to be the sticking point with a lot of people out there. Is that but now we're going digital, because it's now it wouldn't be worth it to do it, to put that new, like, one of the ideas that came up in that forum discussion was to put the magazine on the newsstand, so people outside the hobby would be able. But now with digital, even newspapers are folding, and you can't basically it's not profitable wise to do that. So is the magazine going to be upgraded even digitally? I mean, as far as articles and content?
Well, okay, so I think we have, for what our magazine costs you, I think we have a pretty good magazine. The difference between our magazine and, say, Model Railroader, or even Model Railroad Hobbyist, or Railroad Model Craftsman, which is probably the most, I'd say, Railroad Model Craftsman and Shortline and Narrow Gauge Gazette, or Narrow Gauge and Shortline Gazette, whichever way around that is. They're dedicated to hardcore, high complex scratch building folk. You're not going to get an article in there on, here's how I shook the box and built a DPM structure with 4 walls and a roof, right? But there's nothing wrong with that, and everyone needs different levels, and I learn something from every magazine I pick up. I don't think it's that bad, but the difference with our magazine is it's a mouthpiece of our organization. So we only print the articles that people send us. So we do pay for articles, we do seek articles all the time, but we can only print what people send us, and that's the same. What's different between us and Model Railroader is they have a staff of writers. They have a staff of associate editors. They also have other people that are on an employment basis to write articles for them. We don't have that. We're an organization. We want to print what our members want to write for the benefit of other people. So it's on our members, if they want to see better articles, to write better articles. And if you've seen an article recently, we ran a few articles by Tom Gager, and if you've seen Tom Gager's layout and Tom Gager's articles, they would not be out of place in RMC, And so I think the articles are good that are there. If you want them to be better, or you think you can do better, then do it. There's no one stopping you. You've got more chance of getting printed in the NMRA magazine as an NMRA member than you have of getting printed elsewhere, because elsewhere you'd be in a big queue. So
That's
you
true.
big queue of other people, because everybody wants to be published in Model Railroader.
Right. Split Rock. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gordy.
No,
go
it's
ahead.
fine.
No. Go. I'm just saying that Split Rock 323 says the intangible benefits are many to being a member. And Dan's Model Railroading Journey says, anyone want to attend a virtual meeting to see where we're about, you can check out the Twin Cities division. He says, please reach out to me, and he can set that up for you.
And they're great. I've been to a few of their division meets. I was in a division meeting in Dallas this afternoon, or morning to them.
Yeah.
I just dropped in and said hello, and
Yeah.
it's what's so good about the way that we're working at the moment. This hybrid approach, it's fantastic.
And Dan further goes on. He says, "How many of you are not members that use an NMRA gauge for tracks and wheels? Benefit? Question mark." Roger Coleman says, "I think you get out of the membership what you put into it." You know, uh, 1066 says, "I don't have a layout yet, but I've grown so much since I joined the NMRA, Minnesota Valley Division." Yeah. The NMRA is about sharing the hobby, and it's about friendship. And then how is the NMRA going to reach out to those that are basically sitting on the fence post, you know?
Yeah, so we already do a lot of outreach to those that are sitting on the fence post. I would warn those people that splinters do happen and are
Yes, they
dangerous.
do. They are.
But there are millions of model railroaders in the world. Millions, millions and millions and millions. We need to change our model. It needs to adapt. I'm working at the moment on what does COVID recovery look like. We're still in mitigation though. We're still in mitigation. The Delta variant is damaging around. It's making us lose things around the world again. It's. I would argue it's worse now than it was in 2020. In 2020, we didn't really know what was happening, and we were cancelling stuff, but we're still going to be cancelling stuff this year. We're not back to normal. We're pretty much as model railroading as a hobby, as the social aspect of our hobby is on life support still.
Yeah.
So we're still in mitigation, but it was the question that I challenge at the moment with our directors and others is how do we recover as an organization? And I'm trying to point people to look at what others are doing, such as the Illinois Technical University, the Illinois Tech University Model Railroad Club, who have FREMO. They take over the university corridors and set their FREMO modules up. They have teams that work on that. That's a great model. That is exactly what you as a division can do for people like 1066 that don't have a layout yet. It's not difficult to rent a storage unit. They're not expensive. There's loads of these pop-up storage unit places now all over the world, and throw some FREMO modules in there and then rent a place, get them out and invite other people to come and join you. I mean, it's not too difficult. So we're doing that in the British region. We have a lot of NMRA divisions that have FREMO modules and members who have FREMO modules. We have some divisions that only have a layout because they come and set their modules up. So I think the NMRA needs to adapt or in certain areas definitely, but it's hard. It's hard because we've got to understand that it's like effectively the NMRA is like a franchisee ship where I can't go in and close you down for not doing what we tell you to do. The national can't tell you what to do. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And so, right down to grassroots, we can see that there are places even in the United States where we're struggling, where we've got a division of 4 or 5 people, and that division of 4 or 5 people is going to struggle to grow. So we are looking at that. We've just set up a new committee, a board committee, to look at membership development going forward and what can we do. I think increasing our online presence helps somewhat with that, but you've then got the challenge of, if you increase membership, you've then got to make sure you're also increasing what I call active. So you've got to increase the number of members that you're activating. So how active are your members? What is the activity like? Because that's really what you've then got to do. So somebody becomes a member, and then some people become a member. They'll have been on the fringe of the NMRA for a long time. They'll become a member. Getting them to volunteer and do stuff and become active in the organization isn't too difficult. These are the kind of
Right.
people that are going to perform some voluntary function. I'm not going to say they're going to run for office, but they're going to
No, no, I
perform some
understand.
voluntary
No.
function. And there's less and less of those. If people don't pass things on and have a plan to introduce new members and work towards and become volunteers, you'll have less and less of them, and the organization will just fizzle away. So it's a challenge. It is an absolute challenge, but I think as an organization, we have to find a way to provide more than just mateship and clinics. The education, we can move that online. So we should be focusing in division level things that we can't do online when we can come out of COVID ultimately. And the
Yeah.
Illinois Tech, if anyone's not gone on Facebook and had a look at the Illinois Tech Model Railway Club or Model Railroad Club, go and have a look at what they're doing.
Yeah.
If you want a model, because ultimately I care deeply about the NMRA, but I care deeply about the hobby as well. And ultimately, if you're anti-NMRA to your core because somebody, stole a chip out of your bag of chips at a certain convention in 1970, whatever, then I'm never going to change your opinion. But
True.
go and have a look at what they're doing and see how you can introduce that to your model railroad club, and you will see that is the greatest thing. The best ideas come from people who come to something with fresh eyes. So if that's somebody new to your division or new to your club, they have the best of ideas. Only for
Yes.
about 12 months, then you've burned them. But when they first come, they've got the best of ideas, and you should absolutely listen and encourage them. And if you can't do something or something can't happen because of whatever reason, explain it to people, but don't dismiss. And you
Yes.
look at what that Model Railroad Club's done at Illinois Tech, and they're bringing in people who don't have a history of being model railroaders in their family or any exposure to model railroading. But what you find is we spend so much time on computers. I spend 16 hours a day in the week on my computer doing NMRA business or my paid employment. And people want to be able to switch away from the computer and work with their hands. And
Yes.
we've got that deep down primitive sense of wanting to use your hands
Your
to do
hands
something.
and your mind.
Yeah, and that's whether some people go and express that in the kitchen. You see the rise of
Yes.
like Hello Fresh and whatever
Yes.
they've got in the States, but or Simply Cook or whatever it is.
Yes. Yes.
But you see, so some people express it that way, but a lot of people want to express it artistically, and model railroading is a great hobby for that because it's so broad. It is so much
As
broader
it is.
than like going flying a plane that 5 seconds later a gust of wind crashes and destroys your plane that you've spent as much as we spend on a layout on, But
Or well, let's go better. Let's go simple in the hobby. RC cars.
RC cars, yeah.
So when you run the RC cars, and then it breaks, and you pile up on it, then you've invested all that money, and you have to put it all back together or buy new components for it. Yes, I understand completely what you're saying in regards to the benefits of the hobby and the artistis. When I was in the Staten Island Model Railroaders Club out here in Staten Island, we were in the Snug Harbor. We had space in Snug Harbor Cultural Center, and they gave us a pretty good sized room. And the guy Tom Wertman, who's an NMRA member, he always scheduled us to have the model railroad open during art exhibitions at Snug Harbor. And we would all be like, well, why would we do that? And he said, because what we're doing is art. He says the cultural center may not know that, but we do. So let's open it. And this is a true story. They had an art exhibit on the floor, and what it was a guy took a sailboat, a schooner, and he cut it up into many sections and laid it out in different sections. The whole thing, he just laid it out, and it was a grand gala opening. But in order to get to the exhibit, they had to walk past our room, and we had people in tuxedos and gowns in our room. And the New York Times art writer came in and said, "What is this?" And Tom explained to him that this is a model railroading club, and this is what we do. And he was like enthralled with it. And he later came back and did a small story on us and showed it. So yeah, it does. The cultural center finally recognized us and put us in their brochure, and then they kicked us out a year later. So, but it goes to show you. Ken Ziga, I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right, Ken. I'm from New York, and I mess up everything. Names, so it's do's and thous and yous guys, so he says we in parentheses, the members are the ones who should be reaching out and not sitting back expecting someone else to do that. I agree totally. Indian Head Valley Railroad says, I do appreciate everyone's input. I will check out the website, and thank you very much for your help. And Andy Ambrose says the NMRA is us. Now, that's a good thing because, I just recently got something from the NMRA in regards, and this new slogan that was coined by Andy McVeigh, superintendent of the NFR Western New York Division. It says here, was mentioned in John During's column in the last NER coupler. Dave Durer, superintendent of Lakeshore Division, also refers to Andy's slogan in his editorial in the last Lakeshore Limit. And basically what his slogan is I am the NMRA.
Yeah, and if I have it in September, I think my column. So I say, I say at the end of my column in September, in the September NMRA magazine, I say, remember, we are all part of Team NMRA, and that's the biggest thing, is that there is no bigger model railroading team than the NMRA, and it is a team, and it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing when you just sit back, reflect, get a pen and a piece of paper, and write down all the things that NMRA members do together. It's amazing, whether that's raising money for children's charities or other charities, whether that's putting on events, conventions, education, building each other's layouts, doing op sessions, online education through YouTube in the middle of a pandemic, virtual meetings, the MMR program, the helping to coordinate the development of DCC and LCC, a whole standard. You name me in any other organization, you can't name another organization in model railroading that does that. And there's not many other hobbies where people do that. You like go, oh yeah, I'm in a bike club, not a outlaw bike club. I'm in a lawful bike club, you know. Well, yeah, maybe there's someone there that can fix your bike or anything, but you're not all doing it together. You don't all sit there generally and change the sprockets on your bikes, you know. It's like, whereas we would all sit there together and put sound in a locomotive and stuff like that, you know.
Couplers, yeah.
And so it is absolutely a team effort. And even if you think in the NMRA you're a lone wolf,
right,
you're not. There is no such thing as a lone wolf in the NMRA, because in some way you will be contributing. It's just the where your membership fee goes to help, you know, outreach and help other members. You're there, you know. There's no lone wolves.
Yeah. Split Rock 323 says, when you pay dues to join a volunteer or organization, you become an owner of that group, whether it's the JCs, Lions, etc. You own the NMRA and can help make it the way you want it to be. Yes. And Mike O says, I think most of the NMRA happens at the division level. He says, with that in mind, can we have more official positions eligible for the AP certificate for association official?
Yeah, so I agree. Most things do happen at the division level, and if you are now the division superintendent, that does count towards association official. So whether your division's 4 people or 400 people, so there are many positions eligible for association official, and it is a harder one to get, but it absolutely requires, you know, it's a particular interest I think people have to be. I don't think we should be having people going on and saying, just going to do that to sit in a seat on their hands for 3 years to get a certificate. So
yeah,
I'm not sure there will be more roles for association official. It generally, in your hobby career, it isn't too difficult to be elected into one of those positions, to step forward and volunteer. We are always struggling to fill those positions. So yeah, I don't think at this time we need more eligible positions, because we've just made that change, and that's helped. It helped me get my association official, and I know it's helped a few others as well. So I think we're quite good with that. But you know, we are, these things are always under constant review, so you never know, it may change in the future.
Andy Ambrose says that he still finds having children is the most expensive hobby.
Yes.
Yeah, I concur with that as well. Andy Crawford says, I think model railroading is a collection of rabbit holes, or it works out that way for me anyway. Ralph Renzetti says the model railroad hobby is a big hole that we've all fallen into, and thank you that we're in it together. Yes. One of the things is, you're having the NMRA has that California museum in Sacramento. Is there
Yeah, the
any
exhibit, yeah.
Yeah, with the library and everything. Are there any plans to expand this idea to make other exhibits slash museums, such as for the Australians, the Canada, Mexico, East Coast, stuff like that?
Um,
A traveling exhibition, I guess.
well, the problem with that is just the sheer logistics of a traveling exhibit. We
Hmm.
have the traveling national convention and national train show already, and
Right.
we talked about that earlier in the stream. There's nothing to stop us having another exhibit somewhere else. It would need a volunteer to step forward and a submission and then the funding. That's been a very long project to get that exhibit at the California State Railroad Model Railroad Museum, whatever it is, Railroad Museum. It's been a long time to get that done. And there are other NMRA exhibits elsewhere that I'm aware of. I know in the UK there's a massive, great big bell, a full-size bell off a Canadian Pacific locomotive that's in a museum somewhere, that was donated to the British region back in the 40s. They used to take that. I think it weighs a ton. They used to take that out to their convention every year. Can you imagine what that was like? So, um, it's not a no; it's an open opportunity, but it requires, people to step forward and get it done.
On off the 1066 asks, can a beginner ask a question? Are there simple loop track plans worth building? He says, I feel bored with them even before they are built.
Yeah, I can understand that. My advice would be before you build any layout, go and operate some other people's layouts, and take a notepad, and a pencil, and sketch or draw or write what you liked and what you didn't like about every single layout you ever operate on before you build one. And if you do that, whether that's from the color of the wires under the layout, ask everything. There's no stupid questions to the layout owner. Ask them everything. Ask them what they wouldn't do differently if they could. Ask them all sorts. If you do a particular job and you operate, you say you're a. I always say to people, go and do a job where you're switching. Even if you're switching towns, don't do a job where you're running a passenger train through the layout unless you want to see all the layout. Then go and get another job, right? Because what you'll find is as you're switching that town and you particularly like the way an industry's laid out, I'll go and draw it. And I've got a book in my rucksack that when I travel to the States, that I'll sit in my hotel room and I'll draw it and I'll write down and I'll make notes. And I really like that track plan. I might come back to my laptop and draw it out on my laptop and store it and whatever. I have a whole folder on my laptop that's full of model railroad ideas and photographs and particular things that I liked about the way someone did something. So that would be my advice to 1066 before you even think about it. Generally, a circular track with a train going round gets boring really quickly, doesn't it, Bill?
Yes, it does. It does, quite honestly.
But if you build a layout, when you do build a layout and you design a layout, and I've operated hundreds of layouts. I'm only 34, but I have operated hundreds of layouts. If you can make it, consider how you would display your work to a non-model railroader. So if you can make it so that the train can run around in a big loop, that's great because you can leave a train running around in a big loop while you're working on something on your workbench. You keep looking up and going, that looks fantastic, and appreciate your own work. But also when the family comes around, or worse, the mother-in-law, and you want to try to explain to the mother-in-law this train, you can just leave it running around.
Yeah.
So there is advantages to having the ability to have a train just keep continuously looping around on your layout.
Yeah. Mike O says most modelers who halfway help out will get volunteer easily. I think the commitment to stay in a position over many years has a lot of value for preserving institutional memories. Yes. Come for the trains, but stay for the people, Mike O says. Very
Absolutely.
true. Marty's Train says, Marty Jenkins says, the NMRA in Australia sent a layout by Golf Knot, Smuggler's Cove to the USA, and is now one of the first layouts you see when you enter the history of model railroading in the Cal State Rail Museum. Let's see. What the you guys had much success with the NMRAX, much success, and that was kind of like done due to the pandemic. We well,
Not
not
quite.
really, but it did numbers boasted.
It helped.
Yes,
It
it
helped.
helped.
The pandemic certainly helped us have a willing and otherwise not engaged audience. But
Well, yeah, because I myself can tell you that from the model railroading live shows that we've done, we saw our numbers exponentially go up, and then as this thing started to, then we saw them coming down again. But you guys got the hook in there. I mean, you don't want to say thank God for the pandemic because that's not what is about or why you did what you did, but it created a sense of like, hey, wait a minute, I like what I'm watching here, and the NMRAX was like really timely and intriguing and interesting. We've had a few of our own. Ralph Renzetti was part of it, and some other guys from MRL were on it. But it has seemed to catch on, and I am particular to Speed. I like his attitude. I like his go get him attitude and his stick to itiveness and his logic to how he approaches it, and to Marty as well for their approach to it. Will the NMRAX remain free, or will it be put behind a paywall?
it's a good question. We surveyed our members on this, and actually quite a lot of our members thought that some part of it shouldn't be free. I think if we take it, we only ever got to notch 1 with NMRAX at this point. We have a lot more we want to do with it. We have the technology tried and tested. It's just people's time, and preparing that for a proper successful launch. So I think though, if we do that, that may well then go behind a paywall. If we take it up a notch, it'll probably have to go behind a paywall. But it's not a paywall. It'll just be behind. You'd be an NMRA member, you get an extra perk. But the live streams that we do will always be free on our YouTube channel. Some of the videos may go in our go only on our website, which would be in keeping with what other people do. Model Railroad Video Plus, there's very little content available for free. There's very little content available from MRH for free on there. I can't think what it's called off the top of my head now. Trainmasters TV, other places. So I think it's my intention for the duration of my presidency that it will remain free for the live streams for sure. But some of the videos and some of the new stuff that's coming may well be initially available to our members because it'll be a limited audience that we can have for it. So it'll have audience participation, and you can't have 1,000 people turn up to a clinic that's audience participation. That just does not work.
Right.
The fees on Zoom for that would be astronomically out of budget. So we've got to manage that, and we've got to make sure that a member of the NMRA has some kind of perk there. But no, it's there and it's fine. And just if I can, the NMRAX was my idea to do that came in 2017 in the Florida convention when I was fortunate enough to extend a business trip. So I didn't pay for my flights. I just had to pay for my flight down to Florida and my digs for a week.
Yeah.
And I stayed in a very shady motel, but that didn't matter. But I was like, I felt very privileged, and I was very conscious of the fact that most of my colleagues in the UK didn't have access to this level of clinic and would never be able to travel for health reasons or financial reasons to the States, because of course to travel from Europe to America for the national convention triples whatever you guys would normally pay to go to an NMRA convention. So it's a lot of money for us. The US is a much richer country than most European countries, so it's very, very expensive. And so then in 2018, me and Marty had a few beers and discussed it at Kansas City in a bit more detail. And it was at that time I was moving to here to live in Orkney. We were building the house, and I said, as soon as I move into the house, we'll launch this ideally a month later. Okay. And so I moved into my house here on the 23rd of March, which was the day the UK went into lockdown in 2020. And on
Right.
the 24th of April, we launched NMRAX Live.
Right.
So it was not launched as a response to the pandemic, but
Right.
it then became a thing of, okay, there was a really good response to that first 24 hours, and it was like, well, we need to carry on doing this
Right.
because we need to carry on doing this at a pace whilst people are under the pandemic, and that's why we did it every 2 weeks. We got a lot of stick for doing it every 2 weeks for a little bit of time, and then of course we did Gateway X, and
Yeah.
now it's settled down into a more regular cadence where we do on the fourth Saturday of every month. So that works out quite well. There's a few other things we're going to use there. It's a really good way of us communicating, and I think on the next one in September we're actually going to talk about. We're going to do a bit of an awards event where we're going to talk about people that received quite, the higher awards from the NMRA in the last 12 months, some honorary life memberships, etc. So it's pretty good.
Right.
It
Well,
has been good for us.
good. Eric Hall wants to know, and I guess so. The other is so no conventions or other things behind a paywall, etc.
No. So where we can, no. So the live streams will do that. I think once we return to some semblance of normality, and it's ultimately for the NMRAX team to decide this, not necessarily me. But I don't think that every month will work when people are out of their houses again. But there's
Yeah.
still those
True.
people that can't leave their houses. Okay.
Right.
So we gotta find that balance. There are a lot of hours of content on our YouTube channel now anyway.
There
I know
is.
Andy Ambrose has watched all of it, but there's a
Yeah.
lot. So there is stuff there for people to watch. But I think we've launched at the last NMRAX last month. We launched breakout rooms, which were free to everyone. We had
Yes.
those pre. I know that the guys did a fantastic job at Rails by the Bay. That wasn't the NMRX team that did that, but we did give them some advice. We'd actually trialed our breakout rooms at the Australian convention just a month before, so in June. So we knew we could do it, and so now that's a feature. But I think what we'll probably do is move towards more of a bigger event once or twice a year. That'll be free. But the videos, the recordings of it afterwards, maybe not so. They might be on the NMRA's member website.
Right. As the president of the National Model Railroads Association, your term limit is what? 3 years?
So the term is 3 years. There's actually no term limit of how many 3-year terms the president, vice president, secretary, or treasurer can do. But there is for directors. So directors can serve 2 3-year terms.
So you could be reelected 4 times.
Yes.
Okay. So in your presidency, them taking over, do you feel as though you're in a hurry up mode here to get things done, or what is your expectation and your anticipation of getting things done? What would you like to see?
Why would we wait?
Right. No, that's what I'm asking. Is it a
So
hurry up?
yes, it isn't a sit on my backside and do nothing. No,
No,
that's not my approach. So
no.
anyone that knows me knows that ain't my approach. I would anticipate you will see the NMRA launch something new to take NMRX to the next level in 2022. I anticipate a digital magazine being available within a year of me being the president. I would anticipate you would have a digital magazine available before my first year as president, because that should have happened 10 years ago, right? We've just got to work out the finer points of how the heck do we deliver that? How the heck do we pay for that? And all that kind of stuff, which we're working on. So no, I think you will start to see things. I think, yeah, there's a lot of work going on. I would say I am at full capacity right now, and so are a lot of other people. So one of the biggest things that I walked into is I realized that some of the NMRA national departments are a department of uno person, or a committee of one person. That ain't a committee, that ain't a department.
Right.
So right now, behind the scenes, we're doing quite a lot of stabilization, because I got to be honest, like, it looked like a roof that was about to cave in 2 months ago, and it does not look like that now. You know, it's just, and it shouldn't do. It's a strong organization. It's really strong, but it's just not opening up and being honest and saying, hey, we need some people to come and step into this. We need some people to do these things. You know, that hasn't been going on, and it
Mhm.
will be happening now. The more people that we can get on board, the better we can do. We're looking at, I've recruited a small team of people to, well, as soon as I've got the capacity, as soon as I've got the immediate issues off the ground, the conventions and stuff,
Right.
we'll be, you know, there's a team in the wings there to look at how we take NMRX and our online education forward. And what does that look like? Well, we know what that looks like, but how do we deliver it? And how do we deliver a prototype and a pilot of that? And I have that team in place. I have a project leader for that team. I have everything in place, and that won't be using any of our any of our current resources, because all of our current resources are fully committed to doing what education we do today. I am committed as the president of the organization that unless something's no longer wanted by the members or no longer significantly financially unviable, I won't take anything away that people have today. It will always be an option.
Right.
Of whatever it is that people have today, will, unless the government prevent me from doing it, like lockdowns,
Right. True. No, of
social
course.
distancing,
Right.
um,
Exactly.
I will make sure that the stuff we do today will continue to do. That means
Right.
there will be a print magazine. It won't be all digital. There's people email me, you know, Bill, and say, "Oh, don't take away my print magazine. I like
Sure.
to sit on the throne and read it
Yeah.
whilst
Of
I'm having my
course.
morning ablutions." And I'm like,
Exactly.
"Oh heck, I don't want to get between a man and his morning ablutions, you know."
That's it.
So you will still have your print magazine, but
That's it.
make
Makes
sure it's
things,
got your name on it and no one else reads it. But
yes,
like,
makes things flow better, you know?
absolutely,
Yeah, exactly. You know, one of the things is, there's a question that so many people have been, this is what was said to me prior to this thing. They said, basically, there's only so much money out there, i.e., people have other hobbies, cars, fishing, whatever else they do. And promoting this hobby is essential. And the age is going up, not down at present.
age of well, hang on. Your age? The age of what? What age of
Well,
what's
there's a
the
lot. I guess the thing would be there's a lot of older men than me in their 70s
yeah?
and 80s. So are we
Are we?
recruiting the youth?
Oh, so the average age of NMRA membership.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
So what was? So question for you.
yes, go
We'll
ahead.
turn the tables a second.
Sure, go right ahead.
What was the average age of NMRA membership in 1992?
I have no idea.
There's no. Listen, I have a rule that if by getting the wrong answer you won't die, you should try and answer the question. So what do you
Okay,
think?
I would say it was in its mid 60s, early 70s,
No, it's 56.
56. Okay,
Now it's 70, 78, 76,
78.
78.
Right.
But it's coming down. Sorry, no, 68, 69. So it's gone up 10 years over 30. So we've had this problem for a long time. Okay. There are younger model railroaders. There are younger members of the model railroad of a National Model Railroad Association. We are seeing a lot of younger members join the National Model Railroad Association. It's a myth that they're not. It's a myth that they're not. A lot of people join the National Model Railroad Association when they're in their 50s. And that's always been the case. Always.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because potentially, rather than taking the kids to football practice on a Saturday, they now can go to the NMRA meeting, and people only saw the only benefit of the NMRA being the division meeting or whatever like that. And we've got
Right.
to change that. So what we've got to do is look at what appeals to model railroaders today. Where does the NMRA benefit? And a lot of younger, I'm just going to say, let's not say younger because it's just so disingenuous. Let's say working age model railroaders, right,
Right.
are into their RPM and whatever, because for some reason they see it as being different from the NMRA. Do you know the NMRA puts the insurance up for most, if not all, RPM meets?
Right.
Right. So the
Okay.
NMRA is completely intertwined and supportive of those new initiatives. We
Mm-hmm.
are there. We're just not very good at telling people that we're there.
Okay.
And so we know we need to get better at that. That's why we brought in a marketing consultant a few years ago.
Right.
But we only have a marketing consultant working 20 hours a week. It's not a marketing consultant working 40 hours a week.
Right.
But still, you look at, in 2017, there was 11,000 members of our Facebook group. Now there's 23,000. There was less than 3,000 people following our Facebook page. Now there's nearly 8,000. There was 136 subscribers to the NMRA YouTube channel, right? Now there's about 2,400 people who are members of the YouTube channel. So the people are there. Most of the people don't know we exist. Our problem isn't that we're anti-young people. Our problem isn't that we're some kind of old man's club. In the fullest sense of it, we are, but it's not, and I do have my smoking jacket, and I don't smoke a pipe, but I'll quite happily sit there with a cup of tea with my pinky out. But that's not the point. The point is that majority of people who are model railroaders don't know we exist, and that's why it's not on there right now, but the scaletrains.com roadshow is going on where they're out and about.
Right.
They're slapping an NMRA logo on the back of that. If you go to a scaletrains.com roadshow event with their big trailer, they're handing out NMRA membership stuff for me. I met with Shane Wilson and Holly from scaletrains.com and negotiated that, and it cost us all it cost us. We just had to give them the collateral.
That's it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
That's all it took, was a conversation in the collateral. Do you know what the average age of people that buy scaletrains.com stuff is?
In their mid-30s to early 40s, I would assume.
Spot on. 35.
Yeah, 35.
Average customer age is 35. Most of the stuff they're making is they're making modern image on 80s onwards prototypes as their initial stuff. They're doing it because they want to have those model railroaders customers for the lifespan of them being customers.
Exactly.
The majority of NMRA members at the moment model transition area because that's what they remember.
Right.
The majority of new people into the hobby model what they remember from their 10 years old onwards, okay, to be maybe going off to college or coming back from college. That period, or they model what they can see out the door today, out the window today.
Sure.
And so, those are the people we need to beat. Now, the NMRA needs to be in their sphere. All we simply need to do is make people aware. The biggest problem we have is awareness that we exist as an organization. When I was 13 to being 16 when I left to the military, I went to my local NMRA division. I didn't know that they were an NMRA division. I just knew there were a group of people that set up a modular layout and they ran American trains. I didn't know what the NMRA. No one ever forced me to become an NMRA member. No one ever put me in NMRA. I wish they had, because I could have been a life member. But nobody ever put
anything got a good bargain at it too.
I know what I would have been asking for Christmas, but nobody put that under my nose. Nobody put any pressure on me. Everyone was welcoming. Those guys now, I go back and I talk to those guys, and one of them, who's an MMR, who was my absolute idol when I was seeing his stuff when he was working towards MMR in the mid 90s to late 90s. He's in Canada. He now lives in Tatamagouche in Nova Scotia. And he calls me up and speaks to me and gives me advice still. And we still talk trains and things like that, So I don't think it matters in our hobby what age you are. Whether you're 16 or 66 or 86 or 90.
I agree with you.
You've still got there. And I have a friend in Ohio who's an NMRA member who likes to talk to... Oh, the name's just gone out my head. The guy who, Alan McLennan, who did the Virginia and Ohio. And
Tony Kessler.
No, was it that Tony's one? Whichever one it was. So Alan McClelland is still a member in Ohio. He's in his 90s.
Right.
And Jordan is in his 20s. And he still raves every time he sees him and talks to him. And Alan still makes the time for him.
Yes.
These people... absolute gold in our hobby, but they exist at all ages. The fact that
Yes.
Jordan will go and speak to him, and he will speak to him, and it is what the NMRA is all about. But they've all found the NMRA, right? And I'm not saying it's like going out and finding Jesus, but you need to be aware. We need to, whenever we've gone out and asked people in the marketing department at train shows, we're the National Model Railroad Association, you would be gobsmacked at the people who have armfuls of trains. These are the bags full of tangent stuff, bags full of exact rail models. Like Athearn Genesis, this guy's buying 10 Athearn Genesis big boys and walking past the NMRA booth, and you collar him because you see him on, you go, well, he's got a fat wallet. Yeah. Not targeting him for any particular reason,
Right.
just talking to him because he's there with trains. And you say, oh, have you ever heard of the NMRA? And they're like, what? The National Mustang Racing Association? And you're like, no, the National Model Railroad Association. Oh, what's that? And that is ultimately our biggest problem. So anyone who says to me, we're not promoting to young people, it's not the case. We are open to everyone, but we as an organization have to make sure we're visible, and we're not doing a very good job of that.
Oh, I think we're starting. Marty's Train Show says the NMRA National needs to look at opening up the membership to model railroaders that model different prototypes examples, the British, Australian, European. It works here. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, it's everywhere. And I think that's a bit of a dig at the British region. The British region is notoriously bad for saying, if you don't model we're the North American Modelers Group.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. We do have an MMR that's just been minted, David Nicholson in the British region, who models this green locomotives called Great Western. You may have heard of them.
Yeah.
Steam kettles with brass on the top, and they're green. He models British stuff out, and there's a few of it. I was at a division meet this afternoon, my time, in Texas, and Volta was there, who's just joined the NMRA, because that division took some trains to the big boy coming to Dallas, and they helped volunteer with the big boy, and they signed up 12 new members. He was one of them. He models German prototype. He's lived in America for 20 years. Originally, he was born in Germany, and he's German, obviously, Volta, and or Volta. And anyway, he's building a HO German layout with trick stuff. We're there, but we're only ever promoting ourselves in our own space. And that is one of our biggest problems. You're right.
In a vacuum.
It's unfair to say I say we don't do a good enough job of it, but we are doing some of it. So,
well, it changes in time. Like I said, it's something. Prior to this show, when I was telling people, that I was doing this interview with you, and I was telling family members who aren't model railroaders, they were like, "Oh, so how big of a deal is this?" I said, "It's a pretty big deal." I said, the national model, and I went on to explain what it is. And people, a few of the guys that I was talking to who play golf and, fish, and they were like, "You guys really have that?" And I was like, "Yeah, you guys go, you fishermen, you stand around," because my son's a fish. He likes to fish. I said, "You guys stand around, talk about the ones that got away. We actually have the actual on scene where people can come in and see what you're doing." And, so yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Before we end, I have one more question I'd like to ask you. And I know that you can run forever on or whatever for as many times until you burn out and you say, "I can't do this anymore." But how would you like to leave the NMRA after your term is up, after you decide that I no longer want to run or be the president? How would you like to see it left? What legacy would you like to leave?
That's a good question. So I would see a positive legacy in the NMRA if we have consecutive years of positive growth with a strategy in place to sustain that growth in the positive way. So I would love to say we'd be all over the world and all the kinds of unrealistic things that currently spin around in my head that would be really nice. But for me, if you in software development, we have a thing called Moscow or Moscow for you guys, right? And it's must, should, could, and would. So must-haves. So like, what would be my must-haves for a legacy? Well, we've had since 2002. I think we've had 1 year where we broke even. The rest of the time, the organization's been in negative growth. Right? That's got to turn around. That's a must-have for me. It's got to be in positive growth. Right? Every single region needs to be seeing positive growth, and they're not. And 2020 has hurt us hard, absolutely hard. It's been a losing season. 2020 was a losing season for the NMRA, like massively, right? So that's the main thing for me. The other thing is that the organization is sustainable, and it's not really sustainable at the moment. So what do I mean by sustainable? So I mean that it's doing things online. It's got a plan in place to be developing itself, to be constantly engaging with the membership, to be asking people, and that ultimately the culture's changed. That's not just something we have to think about. Like today we really have to think about how we're going to do a survey. Well, we did. We've just bought a surveying account for us with a survey software company, so we can now do surveys. But we were thinking a few months ago how we're going to do these surveys. So for me, must-haves is it's got to be sustainable. The culture's got to have changed to be a culture that is sustainable, where we're not thinking about things that I think we're not having to think about things that I think we should just be doing. We're just getting it done. Whereas at the moment, you're still having to fight and argue for what is right and what just is just common sense, you know? Like youth policy, really? At-risk policy, really? And I hold my hand up and apologize to everybody. That was done very badly. The way we implemented that, we made a mistake. We accept that, we acknowledge that. We are family friendly. We just want to make sure we protect people. But we didn't explain it that way. We didn't explain it as well as we should have done. So, for me, a good legacy would be that the organization's able to explain hard things to people, that just becomes part of our culture, that we need to explain things in a better way and do things in a better way and be a fairer thing. Because if you're fair to people and you're fair to model railroaders, it will pay back. Karma is a real thing, and if you don't have that mindset, it will bite you in the backside. And that's what we're working to change. We've got all new department, well, near enough all new department heads, a lot of new directors, a lot of new voices, a lot of new ideas, and a membership development organization. We've got our online presence there. That's not going away. The $50 for the Rails by the Bay was a bargain, but I know it didn't go down very well.
Yes.
Again, it was before my time, really. It happened just at the start of my presidency, but I couldn't change that 6 days in. It was a done deal. It won't happen again.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
If we have to do another online convention, we would do it probably a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And I know that there's loads of people in the organization. There are thousands of people that think the same way that I do. And they feel that their voice is being heard and being listened to. And it is. And so is everybody else's voice. But we're now actually asking. So we're already on that legacy. If I drop dead tomorrow, I feel I've already made a difference just in 2 months.
Right.
So if we can sustain that, I'll be around for as long as I'm useful.
Yeah.
Or as long as the missus lets me be.
Yeah. Superintendent of rail expeditions. Yes. 1066 says, absolutely agree. Personally, I am here to stay. Neil Erickson says, Gordy got me to rejoin. So there you go. Gordy Robinson, I want to thank you so very, very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule and your family life. I know you just had you have an 18-month-old. Magnus is his name?
Oh, no, he's 3 months old.
3 months. 3 months old. And you have your daughter.
3-month-old and a 2.5-month-old, yeah.
And I know
2.5-year-old.
And I know that keeps you busy. And thank you so much. And along with your regular job, thank you so much for coming aboard MRL and to Who's Big Bill Talking To and sharing these ideas and these insights of your presidency and of the National Model Railroad Association. We've been flashing the National Model Railroad Association's website. If you're interested in joining, please go to the website and do what you need to do to join. And again, Gordy, thank you so very, very much for being a part of this. We greatly appreciate it. And I have to do some homework now. Ralph Renzetti would like me to let you guys know that the Down and Dirty Weathering Contest at JC Rib Track, along with sponsoring from Midwest Models, is now in the judging phases. So if you guys would kindly go over to the Midwest Models website, which is at midwestmodeler.com/down and dirty, you can vote. You can vote. You can vote. And you can vote once a day after 24 hours. You can do so and vote. So the Down and Dirty Weathering Contest is coming to an end on JC's Rib Track and Ralph Renzetti. And you guys can go and vote at Midwest Model Railroading, midwestmodeler.com/down and dirty. Also be aware that on the 18th of September, Railroad Empires will be returning September 18th. They will be doing new shows. And on Thursday, Johnny's Train Talk Show will be back on the 23rd of September. So that being said, I just want to say thank you for you guys out there joining and being a part of this. I also want to say at this time, today is the 20th anniversary of September 11th. And as a New Yorker, I personally lived through that unfortunate situation. And I want to just say to God bless America. And to those 13 brave American soldiers who died in the terrorist attack in Kabul, Afghanistan, know that we are with you, and our prayers and thoughts go to your family. God bless America, and God bless you, and we'll see you guys on the radio. Take care.